In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the technique behind bending steel, as well as my book. Hey, if you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. My name is Eric Moss. I'm a personal trainer, motivational speaker, and the modern day performing strongman. If you're unfamiliar with what a modern day performing strongman is, picture the strongman of old, legends of the past like the mighty Adam and Alexander Zass. They would perform real-life feats of strength as part of a live show. I do a similar thing, but with a modern day twist. Some of the feats of strength I've performed in front of a live audience include things like bending steel bars, breaking chains with my chest, twisting horseshoes, rolling a frying pan, driving nails through wooden boards by hand, and even holding back a high-performance motorcycle. Now, being a modern day performing strongman and the fact that there's not a whole lot of us around these days to answer people's questions, in an effort to grow my YouTube channel by giving you guys what you want, I started a YouTube series called Ask Eric Moss, where I'd invite you to ask me a question by dropping it in the comments below. And when you do that, I try to get back to you with your very own custom video answering your question. Pretty neat, right? So, this question comes from at SteelBoil5395. And they asked, I am new to your channel and want to get into some steel bending. Welcome. Does your book cover programming for beginners? I have a background in weightlifting, but bending is new to me. Thanks. Thank you for asking that. Now, to answer your question, yes and no. So my book covers my story, what I learned from my strongman mentors that allow me to do the things that I can do, but it's not necessarily the technique behind it. It's the mindset. So when it comes to the technique, some of the different things, the technique is relatively simple. But it's not really something that is like programmable in the traditional sense, not like adding weight to the bar or specific sets and reps and crap like that. But like, I'll tell you the technique behind my finale feat, as well as what I have the world record in, which is bending steel in the bridge of my nose. Technique is quite simple. You hold your head like this, put the steel bar right on the bridge of your nose, right between the eyes, grab the ends, pull straight down. And if you pull hard enough, it'll bend. The technique is simple, but it's not that easy. See, with the mindset in that case is the primary. See, when it comes to bending steel on the bridge of your nose, you have to make peace with the fact that it is not going to be comfortable, not even the slightest. You're pulling a steel bar against your face hard enough to make it bend. It's not comfortable. That's the reality of it, and it hurts every single time, just like Wolverine in the first X-Men movie. But having said, and that's the mindset that it takes behind this stuff, is pushing through the discomfort. That's something you kind of leave for the stage, though, or in the field of play. There was at one point, and there's technique behind every single feat. It's just, just like anybody who has a 500-pound bench press isn't going to just say, oh, you just go like that. No, it's like there's subtle different things that can help give you extra power. Things like driving your feet into the ground, engaging your lats, keeping your scapula together and in your back pocket, stuff like that. The act of bending steel, there's always technique with every single feat. But the technique isn't even the most important part. It's an important part, sure, but the mindset is the most important part. That's what my book covers, is the mindset that it takes, because that was a large focus of what I learned from my first strongman mentor, New Jersey Superman Greg Matonic. Now, if you do want to learn the technique, my current coach, Hercules Chris Ryder, even though he doesn't really directly coach me anymore, I do sometimes bounce ideas off of him and stuff like that, so I still consider him current. But he has a couple different resources. One here on YouTube, I think that the YouTube title is Strongman Reveals How to Bend Steel or something like that. There's like a couple different things that he has right here on YouTube, and he can get really into the details of technique. And he had described technique as placing the implement where there's like one of three, in a way that there's one of three outcomes. It breaks, you break, or you quit. Ideally, the thing would break. Ideally, you won't break, and ideally, you don't quit, right? But that's technique in a nutshell when it comes to bending steel. As far as also programming, some of the books, he has a couple books available on Amazon. One is about tearing cards. That one covers programming. You see, when it comes to the different feats, there's levels to this stuff. Some things are harder to rip than others. Some things are harder to bend than others. Even within horseshoes, there's going to be a difference between like a race horseshoe, which are intentionally lightweight and don't last very long, and what the hell is that massive horse? A Clydesdale. There's a difference between like a pony's shoe and a Clydesdale's shoe. Tearing cards, different brands are going to be harder to rip than others. But one of the things that's nice about tearing cards is it has progression built in. If you can't tear a full deck, you probably could tear a quarter deck if you've got the technique. And he does cover technique in the book. And in that case, you add a card as you practice your ripping until you're able to do the full deck. And then it's like if you can do more than a deck when you keep adding cards. Cards are kind of like progressive resistance training. And you could do the same thing to an effect with phone books and just the ripping paper type stuff, right? When it comes to progression for bending steel, assuming that you've got the technique down, you start off with like a relatively long bar. This is what Greg taught me. Like let's just say you could do 4 feet, right? And then the next time you do it, you do like 3 feet and 11 and a half inches, right? And then it's like you can kind of progress and program that way. But the most important thing is getting that mindset down, because like bending steel in your face, you have to push through discomfort. Maybe not so much when it comes to bending on the thigh, but there is discomfort because you're pushing steel upon flesh hard enough to make it bend. And you just have to make peace with the fact that it's not going to feel nice. And doing this as like a profession, there was one time I had 13 shows in a week. That's 13 steel bars basically in the same spot, as well as whatever other feats. If I remember correctly, I also did 13 horseshoes, in which case when I'm kind of finishing it into an S bend, it's pretty nearly on the same spot as the steel bars, as well as whatever else I happened to do that week. I don't remember off the top of my head what the set list was. But if you had looked at my thigh, it looked like a Dalmatian with all the bruising, was this like being like the spots. That's being a strength performer in a nutshell, is being able to push through the discomfort and just sucking it up and dealing with it. But and so those books, and I'm going to try to leave descriptions in the comments below. Did I say descriptions? I'm going to leave links in the comments below for Chris's book, which talks about the technique. And if I can find the YouTube video, I'll see if I can link that in the comments below as well. But the important thing is to wrap your mind around the fact that you have an amazing power within you, but it is blocked, right? And a lot of times, steel has these connotations of being impossible in our heads. It's hard, and it doesn't feel good, but it's possible. And when you can push through the discomfort, that's where the essence of bending steel really is. But, and as far as my book, it covers the mindset, it talks about mindset, but it also talks about my story and like what led to that sort of thing. And it's an interesting read for just about anybody that's enthusiastic about this stuff. And if you follow my channel, chances are that you're interested in this sort of thing. So that would be where my book comes in. It's a good, interesting read from what people tell me. Even if people aren't really interested in the profession itself, they just want something interesting to read. But that is it for today. If you like this video, let me know by hitting that like button. If you want to see more of this sort of thing, subscribe to the channel. You can also catch the chronicles from my various performances across the country. And if you want to, if you think anybody should see this, please share it with them. This YouTube thing isn't rocket science. And if you want to support the channel, do all the things that I just mentioned. And you can also further support the channel by doing a super thanks. And if you provide a question with a super thanks, I'll shuttle your question to the front of the queue. I think I'm about 6 months behind on that. And also, just if you ask questions, that also helps support the channel because it gives me content ideas. But that is, oh, and you can further support the channel by picking up a copy of my book. I already talked about what's inside. Link is in the description below. But that is it for today. Please stay happy, healthy, or please stay tuned for next time. And in the meantime, please stay happy, healthy, and strong. Eric Moss, over and out.